I'm preparing to live stream the meeting.
Okay, I'm coming now.
And we are live on BBB. How are we doing, Stephen? You all right, mate?
Yeah, we're good. So, yeah, prepared as ever.
I know, slick as ever. I've literally just gone through the door from work. He's not even ready to go, but honestly, I don't even know where to begin for this one. We've sort of looked out in that we didn't do a live Fury Wilder reaction straight away after the event because there's been a few more updates, a few more topic-worthy or talk-worthy topics come up. As of today, where do you want to begin? Want to get the good news? Start with it. Honestly, right? I'm laughing because after this weekend, I've just been so buzzing with boxing. It's one of those reactions where you're just actually everything I can say about all the boxing this weekend is genuinely positive. Like, what is there to complain about? If you're a boxing fan, you're complaining about this weekend's action, then you're not a boxing fan. You're in the wrong sport. And then within days, there's outrage all over Twitter with the latest goings on. It's just so typical of the sport, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mad. And honestly, it's funny, like you say, the whole country's looking forward to a new fight week now, but we're still digesting. We're better late than never with a bit of Fury Wilder 3 reaction. What a fight.
That's our little midweek thing, isn't it? Now we can just break down a little bit next week and then obviously look ahead to what's coming.
We'll have to learn how to do just a random solo video and just put your little camera on yourself and just rant away Andrew's thoughts or something.
I know, I think I might have to, at some point, especially driving back in the early hours Saturday. I was buzzing. I could have just had a little camera on me driving home, going full belt and praising the Matchroom show that I was at on Saturday night, and then looking ahead, obviously, to Fury Wilder as well. I mean, unbelievable.
Some people literally do that though, don't they? Just flick the GoPro or the dash and just sit and talk to themselves. Like there
was a few people doing it on Saturday night. Actually, they had the phones and a little microphone and literally ringside, obviously not filming the action for anyone listening from DAZN or Matchroom, but literally just their sort of themselves, not even reacting to the actual fights during the fight, but just sort of giving their thoughts and little updates and things. I mean, it's not something I'd ever bother watching myself, but you never know. There might be a target out there, target audience out there.
No, it's mad, man. Honestly, some of the Newcastle United channels do it, and they call it the drive doing or something. It's them driving to a away game, just touring it, and people watch it. And there's another kid on YouTube. It's called Away Days, and he literally documents it a day. It's just that's the whole. We've just learned to put a face on YouTube. Me and you'll be sitting there on Saturday talking in the cameras live from the arena. But no, I know what you're saying. It was one of them great weekends of where everything just went right. The fights delivered, and it was just spot on. Got up in the early hours for Fury Wilder, and then struggled to get back to sleep as per because you're wired from the reaction. And it's Sunday. You feel like absolutely. I'm sure you were absolutely knackered on Sunday as well. Liverpool and back in the same night, and everything swimming around your head. Fury Wilder, the whole lot. But we might as well start with the big heavyweight fight, the big clash, and just react quickly to that. Really, just it was just mental. One of the best fights I've watched in a long time, and really worth getting up for, worth the money on BT Sport box office. Just mint. Just really, just everyone's talking about it, and it's one of them fights. It's that. When your mates, we always say, when your mates start texting you, so what about this and what's next for Fury? And there's mates that you've never really talked about boxing with, who jump on it. No, did you see the fight and all that? And it's sort of, that's when it's without going down the casual route, but it transcends the sport, doesn't it? It's sort of bigger than just our little fraternity on Twitter, and it's got a huge reach in, which is funny because last week I thought it couldn't have been more low key. I just couldn't get into the build up. I was just like, is anyone actually going to buy this? But the fight itself really delivered. Both men.
And we'd said that, hadn't we? And as you say, talking with sort of some of our mates who are what we'd consider boxing fans, we hadn't even really discussed Wilder Fury and how that was going to play out, because looking at it, it was, for me anyway, it was a foregone conclusion up to a point. When it got made, it was like, oh, this is this was the stumbling block why we didn't get Fury Joshua. It was all the legalities surrounding the rematch clauses and contracts, and like Wilder was seen as definitely this side of the pond as a bit of a blockage, and it was like, well, why do we want to see that? Like the first match was competitive with the knockdowns, but Fury outboxed him and probably should have got the decision. Obviously went to a draw. The immediate rematch, or the less drawn out rematch, I think they had a few fights in between, didn't it? But obviously the second bout, like Fury dismantled him, and there was huge question marks left around Wilder. Like, what did he have left emotionally, psychologically? All these excuses coming out, and it wasn't really a fight that I was that bothered about seeing. As I say, it was more of a, oh, this has been made now, and Fury's having to do this, rather than us seeing him fight Joshua. But then in the last few days, it was like, well, actually, like it's still a potentially really good fight, and the way it played out, it played a part in what I described as one of the best weekends of boxing I've ever seen. And again, we'll get onto the other cards that played a part in that, because they did play a part. However, if Fury Wilder hadn't been the cherry on top of the cake, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as good a weekend. Like, it needed that transcending bout, the heavyweight championship of the world, just to top it all off. And obviously the action was split over 3-4 different cards this weekend. It was just one of those genuinely stacked weekends of boxing. And like you say, I had one of my mum's mates message me on Facebook. I've never spoke to her about boxing in my life, and she was asking like how to watch the Fury Wilder fight, and it was just like, this is bizarre. Like, the fact that it is such high profile, like what we normally consider for the Anthony Joshua fights, and like the big, genuinely big stadium fights that have been held over here. It was one of them up there, and dare I say it, with like a Mayweather McGregor type fight that casual fans and non-boxing fans were genuinely interested in and intrigued by. And I think it just shows maybe not the popularity, but the appeal and the wider knowledge now that exists of Tyson Fury.
Absolutely, and maybe it was just in my head where I thought it was low key, because I was quite surprised when I put in one of the chats last week, like, oh, is anyone buying this tonight? And everyone's like, yeah, of course. I was like, oh, okay, like, right.
Oh, I know they are, yeah. Well, better buy it.
Okay, I'll set me along. I'll get my debit card out, and off I went, and I did, and bought it on BT Sport, and I thought, right, okay. And the first thing that struck me, how many people were there in the arena? For some reason, I didn't expect it. I didn't know what numbers it would do without British fans in America. And it was decent. And I was like, oh, the atmosphere looks really good. And honestly, I don't know what I thought. I just thought it's going to be pretty, because of the second fight, like you said, how good Fury was. I thought this is just going to be, quite low key in that. But honestly, the fight itself, I guess we've talked about everything but the fight itself, was brilliant. It just had everything he wanted in a heavyweight sort of, world title fight. And you think that era we grew up, which was like sort of Klitschko just, jabbing, holding. It was just dull, our era of like sort of 20s and teens and that was pretty dull heavyweight wise, to be honest with you. And like that fight was just brilliant. I thought Fury he's just exceptional. He's like, I think, we'd have these discussions on here and stuff, and with your mates and that. And, well, Fury, Joshua, Wilder, they're all on the similar level, and there's nothing. I just don't think that's the case anymore. Like, even I think he's just there now, when I think Usyk is like there, and the rest are just be honestly. I don't know how anyone beats him. I include Usyk in that as well. I think he's just got the lot when he's on that form. I think he's just brilliant, and it's coupled with the fact he can get back up. He proved it. He done it twice in the fourth. All right, wouldn't go into should he have got caught, all that. Like, that I don't think I've ever seen a man that goes down like that and can like sort of flick a switch and recover. It's almost like he goes down and like them punches. They finished Luis Ortiz. They finished many, many heavyweights, Wilder shots. And he is like, goes down, gives himself a second, like, all right, I'm here, I'm all right, just give me a minute. And then his eyes like go back and he's normal again, and he's up, and there's no real sign of jellied legs and his senses, he's scrambled. It's just like, I'm a fucking hard man. Like, I'm gonna get up. It's what I do. I don't know, gypsy warrior. I don't know what it is. It's just like, it's incredible, really. Those powers of recovery. Whether they'll be with him all his career, who knows? But it's just, I've never seen anything like it. And to come back from that fourth round, obviously he was dominating before that. He was incredible, and just win the fight in the style he did, and was just an amazing boxer, Tyson Fury. Like, better than I ever thought he would be. Like, you know, just in a totally different Tyson Fury now as well. Different to the man that went to Germany in 2015. Like, I guess that was the Peter Fury version. This now is just one big hard case lump of a man. Do you know what I mean? Like, incredible, but and it's still an amazing fighter, still amazing on his feet, still has the Peter Fury side, but is now like, that pillow fisted thing was just nonsense. Like, he's a big hard bloke, amazing, really class.
Job done. Summarised. Not much more to add.
Honestly, I'm thinking about it today, and I just think, like, I've one of the things for me as well, the key things, and maybe it's a boring thing for some people, but I was surprised it took John Rawlins so long in the commentary to notice it. And that was just the strength, just killing the strength of Wilder, just laying on him, and every opportunity he got, and not in a boring way, but just when he had to do it, just in the clinches, just was like bang again. He did it in the second fight, and he did it in this one as well. And I just think those legs of Wilder just buckle with that. And then he punishes them when they come out of it. And Wilder can hit. We know that he's a ferocious puncher. Like, no shame in him putting Fury down again. Do you know what I mean? But it's not, I guess, not about how you get hit. It's about how you get back up. And he was brilliant. Credit to Wilder. You know what I mean? Because
yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people have done that. To be fair, as well, they've given Wilder credit for the role he played in this trilogy. The second fight is a bit of the anomaly because, as I say, he got dismantled. He got absolutely battered, beaten up, and ultimately pulled by his corner or stopped, whatever you want to phrase it, like whatever, that was a little bit of another point of discussion, wasn't it? The whole stoppage in that one from his point of view anyway. But like the first fight, I think what you've said there, the way the trilogy's played out, and in the second and third, Fury's used his size, his strength, he's shown his toughness, and yeah, he's definitely used his boxing ability as well. Like, you don't land those sorts of shots without having some technical ability. And you've got to say the same for Wilder too. Like, yes, he's crude, he's wild by name and all the rest of it, but he's definitely got something about him where he can set up that right hand. Like, if all he was doing was winging that right hand, Fury, a boxer as good as Fury, would not be getting caught with it. So you've got to give him a bit of props for that as well. Like, he came out in the first round, had a very clear game plan, like jabbing to the body, trying to get Fury to lower his head, to get that, like, concerned about the body. And he thought, okay, maybe, he's edged that round. This isn't going to be the walkover we thought it was. And even by the end of that first round, like, Fury had sort of timed him, and he was catching him coming in with a hook. He's moving just out of reach. And then even that point, you sense that, okay, like, Fury knows exactly what he's doing. He is going to get the joy, but it's maybe not going to be as one-sided as a lot of people thought. And like, put boxing aside, like, whatever sport you are doing, if you can physically keep going after such a demoralizing performance and such what was probably a very painful performance. Yeah. And while I went out on his sword, that was what he wanted to do in the second fight. I am under no illusion whatsoever that his corner for this fight were under very clear instruction not to stop the fight, not to put the towel in, like, whatever happened. Yeah. Wilder, whether rightly or wrongly, in terms of his health, would rather have gone out like he did in that 11th round than the referee have waved it off when he was on his feet again, or his corner pulling him and throwing in the towel. I don't know how many more fights he can go through like that. Don't know how many more he'll have to go through like that, to be honest. Because, like what you said, like, who else out there could do what Fury has done to him? And I've got to echo your sentiments of not many, really. If you think back to the first fight, going into that one, how big an underdog Fury was, coming back from all these problems, his absence out the ring, you're not in the best of shape. And then to sort of implement the game plan of, I'm going to box on the back foot. That is what 90% of the audience out there think Wilder is going to struggle with. Yeah, we know Wilder's got the power. He can knock out anyone a glancing touch from his right glove. But if someone can avoid that power, if they can box and move, they can screw Wilder. You know what I mean? There was that element of it, definitely. And Fury came very, very close to doing that. He almost also came very close to being sparked clean out, which made it such an intriguing first fight. But then the total shift in game plan, again, there are not many boxers at heavyweight or at any other weight that can box and move on the back foot like Tyson Fury, and then can come forward as aggressively and as physically as Tyson Fury did in the second fight and again this weekend. That's what sort of adds a bit of credibility to those that are sort of echoing your sentiments again and saying that like Fury is levels above the others, because he can do it all seemingly. He can box, he can move, he can put it on you. If you catch him, you knock him down, he comes back fighting. He's done that, like, not just against Wilder, he's done that against lesser opposition too. And it just makes you sit back and appreciate that the very best boxers can do a bit of everything. And I don't think there are many that can do that as well as Tyson Fury at the minute. I mean, for him to go out and put it on Wilder, drop him fairly hard, look like he's going to win, then get dropped himself, but through a combination of, I don't know what it is, to be honest, self-belief, physical conditioning, despite his appearance, like Fury maintained that pace for the 12 rounds. And you don't take a shot from Wilder if you can't then physically get up, get your legs beneath you, like you said earlier, clear your eyes, clear your head, and then just basically go back to what you were doing. It's, I don't know, as I say, I don't know if it is supreme self-confidence, if it's his physical condition, like how he can go the distance, whether it's a combination of all those things, because he's in the biggest fight of his life. And he looked in the second half of the fight in particular, like it was a sparring session. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Wilder, because Wilder was putting up everything he could, but just how relaxed and calm and controlled Fury was, that then probably helped him go the distance. It helped him maintain the pace he was boxing at. And to do that, having been under fire from one of the most feared punchers in the world, is truly incredible.
It was, absolutely. And I think, like, honest, but I think the fourth round as well, though, I think that almost made the fight in a way, because, like, a Fury, you know, a barrage would have been nice again. Oh, he's wiped the floor with him again. He's just, like, I tweeted, this is just levels. This is just incredible. You know, this is, like, he's got his number. He's going to chin him again. But then the fourth round, I think it was almost like if you're watching a film or something, drama or something, and it was like, bam, plot twist. Like, he's down, and it's like, oh, hello. Like, and then, as you say, to come back from that, and I just think that is arguably what made the fight as good as it was. I think that Fury getting put on his arse again was like, and then showing a different side again, like recovering from that, and that effort after that was just, it was just amazing. And like, fair enough, but like Wilder, again, like you said, I think had his moment was at the fourth round, and he went out on his shield, and you know, he causes problems. He's literally legit probably third or fourth best heavyweight on the planet again. But again, like I said, the level between, in my eyes now, and this isn't disrespectful to Usyk, right? Because what he did to AJ was brilliant as well. He's an amazing fighter. But I just think
short memory coming up here, is it?
I just think Fury now is there, and like, I just think it's hard. I just can't see any man stopping him for some time. If he keeps it right and keeps everything right and wants to continue, do you know what I mean? Like, how it is Dallin, we'll get onto this in a minute, but how does Dallin talks about the other day, saying like, would Dillian White beat Wilder? No. Why? What's the point in us fighting Dillian White? And it's like, that's sort of the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, boxing is mandatory defenses, and it is this, and it is, you know, like, it's happened for years. You know what I mean? They've all gone through. Every fighter's gone through them. Klitschko went through them. Lennox Lewis. Like, everyone has to do it. And you think, like, anyway, what was my point before I come on to what's next and all that? My point was
Fury
like,
beats Usyk.
Fury beats everyone by some distance. I think he sort of stopped the heavyweight division in his tracks there. And again, that sounds really disrespectful to Usyk, because he's got more belts and he's just came over here and put a masterful performance in. But I just think.
I agree. I genuinely, I really do agree with you there, because I think what Fury's shown is he's got the skill. Like he can, as I say, he can box on the back foot. He can keep a fight long on his jab if he needs to, and he's the only one in terms of technical ability I think comes close to Usyk. Obviously, a lot of the others are bigger men than him. They're stronger. They're way more. He's shown that doesn't necessarily matter against someone like AJ, and you can dig into that. We haven't done anything on that fight officially, but you can argue why AJ was so tentative, etc. Whether it was tactical, whether it was a result of what Usyk was doing. But I think Fury can mix it up so well. Yeah, we just talked about that. He's done that in the 3 fights against Wilder. He's shown he can keep a fight long. He did it against Klitschko. He's shown he can walk through fire to put his own stamp on things against Wilder, forcing him back. So you think, well, why can't he do that against Usyk? And I think he probably can. The White fight, I think, is probably, and I'm agreeing with Eddie Hearn here, I think it's probably the best fight to be made outside of Usyk and Joshua, because that's obviously happening. So other than Fury fighting Usyk or fighting Joshua, Dillian White, whether you buy into the hard done by 1,000-day mandatory, whatever it's up to now, probably 10,000-day mandatory challenger, like whether you agree with all that and the way they've spun it, he is the mandatory challenger for Fury's belt. It's an all UK match. It's one of those that will definitely catch the public's imagination. I think it'll be fairly one-sided in favour of Fury.
Do you not think Otto Wallen has something to say about that though? People are talking about
it. Of course he does, and yeah, we are again boxing fans, boxers, boxing promoters. We're all guilty of that, overlooking certain fights and things.
A lot of
it'll be a good yardstick because obviously they've got that. They'll have that common opponent to reflect on and to compare. So if White goes out and smashes him in a round and he's taking Fury further than that, we know those sorts of theories don't necessarily mean anything in terms of the fight, but in terms of promoting it, they'll definitely be able to big that up. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how White does. Should he get through that again? Like we've seen before, he's lost one of these fights that he should have won in theory against Povetkin.
Yeah.
He then had to do it the rematch. Like, would he then do the same against Wallen? Like maybe so, maybe. So obviously if he gets through that, then you've got to look ahead to Fury versus White. It's not the great fight that we all wanted, but it's a perfectly good fight in looking at the current heavyweight landscape. But I think similarly to any opponent, Fury can win it, and he can probably do that however he wants. I think you highlighted the 4th round, and it seems bizarre to highlight his worst round of the fight as picking him as a reason to win. But I don't think even if White catches him and lands that big shot, that it means Fury's done. We've seen that he can get up and maintain his composure and go on and win a fight, go on and stop an opponent on several occasions in his career. Like he's done it with Steve Cunningham. He's done it against legit heavyweights, even the same more limited opponents, and obviously more recently Wilder. It's what do you look at in Dillian White and think, yeah, he's going to beat Fury? Like
nothing.
I don't think I can. And what I would say as well is, I don't think I can do that for Joshua. There's been times over the past few years I've thought that's close to a 50-50. If AJ lands, he's a good finisher. He'll put Fury away. But I can't say that with any confidence now, and it doesn't bother me. I picked Fury to win that for a while now. I wouldn't particularly mind who won. I think Fury would rightly go in as the favourite, and I can see now a whole host of ways in which he beats Joshua. I can't flip that round now and say I see Joshua out boxing him, or even see Joshua out fighting him. That sort of, when you talk about like that dog in the fight, that nastiness, Fury's got that as well. He's got it. He's got it all.
I totally agree with you. I think that's what I was trying to say earlier. I think he's put massive daylight now between him and the rest of the division. All right, maybe he's like, we'll put him and the other ones, like, okay, we'll put Usyk in there with him. But I think now Joshua, Tyson Fury has killed that fight and that clamour more or less really for that fight dead, because he's that good and he's that much better than him. I think he wipes the floor with Dillian White. If I picture that, mind's out, I just see Dillian White plodding forward. I think Fury will destroy him. And I never would ever say that about Fury, because he was never a destroyer, but he is now. He's a punisher. He's a destroyer. You know what I mean? He's done it a while, twice. Look at the demolition job in the second, and look at the knockdown towards the end on the third, while they're like crumpled in a heap. Like, Fury's now, like, he's still the Peter Fury, but he's also a big, hard wrecking machine, like a proper destroyer of a fighter. And I just think he's better in every department than Dillian White. But that's the game. That is the game. He needs to do his mandaries. Every heavyweight's done it before him, and
So then,
but then again, a lot of people in boxing Twitter and in who we speak to fancy Dillian White to get beaten his next fight. You know what I mean? Oh, Valens, no idiot. He proved that against Fury himself.
See, I never necessarily considered that. I thought, yeah, it could prove to be competitive or whatever, and there's definitely question marks on Dillian White's ceiling, just how good he is. But I'll be backing him to win. I think he'll win.
Oh, so would I. We can't beat
convincingly.
He's in trouble. But then again, like, I just think, like you said about AJ, unless AJ comes and does something special against Usyk in the rematch, I just think, I don't know, he's gonna, like, you know, does he hit as hard as Wilder? No. It's like, you know, is he that good finisher anymore? Has he shown them signs for a while now? Probably not. You know what I mean? It's just like, I think honestly, Fury is now, if it's in football terms, right, and you had Fury, Usyk, Joshua, Wilder going back a month, right, you'd say, bloody hell, there's not much in them. And I put a poll out, who do you think will win these fights? And most people would have said Joshua, he's too big, whatever. Fury win again, right? But there wasn't that much between them now. If that was a title race, that's your top four. If Fury's now,
where the football reference was coming.
But if Fury's now suddenly just like got a 12-point lead, he's that much better. And then Usyk is a really decent second. And I just think, I don't know, I can't see anyone troubling him. I certainly can't see Dillian White troubling him. And if you compare the last performances between Fury's and AJ's, then it's light years, absolute million miles between the two of them. And that was never the case. That was never the case.
If we're saying then that,
like you said, you could name me one factor of how AJ now beats Fury, because he doesn't outbox him, and his recent performances, he doesn't knock him out. How does he do it then?
Yeah, exactly. As I say, you can say that for like everyone in the division now. And
honestly,
boxing is one of those very reactionary sports, isn't it? Like, you're only as good as your last fight. We're obviously looking at him doing a number on Wilder. AJ's coming off a comprehensive loss in terms of like being outboxed. So yeah, it is very difficult. Like, obviously, AJ can bounce back. He might come out and smash Usyk in the rematch, and suddenly it's all flipped on its head again. And it's a lot to do with the momentum, and that's certainly with Fury. So if we put him at the top of the tree, we've got a comment from Jake TK saying, I hope Wilder comes back. Any fight will be exciting with him in, and right now he beats a gun-shy AJ. Chinese Yoda then adds, Wilder, next fight he beat 37, done. And his hand is completely smashed again, more metal. So we're confident with where Fury's going. Where do you think Wilder's going to go from here?
I agree. The first comment was an interesting one. Like, you know what, he sort of redeemed himself in that last fight, and you think actually he's still quite fun to watch. He's still got that power. He's seen it again. He's got it. He's, you know, like,
I think he'll always be fun to watch as long as his career lasts.
Where he goes for here is, like, I guess his trainer Malik Scott said the other day, saying he belongs at the top and he wants the top fights. So he's going to have to just sort of see what's left around that top echelons of the division, and hopefully get in still some big fights and continue fighting. If that's what he wants to do, he's took some punishment, I guess, in the last two fights, which, you know,
psychologically, he's got a lot potential of demons to answer and to deal with, I think, because we saw how badly he took that first loss, all the excuses, the suit, his water was spiked, his trainer was on Team Fury, and God knows what else. With this one, because of the way it ended, as I say, it was bizarrely probably more satisfying for Wilder to get knocked clean out, and then he can just sort of go away and think, right, I did lose to the better man. But what he brings to the table hasn't really changed. Like,
no.
There'll be other fighters looking at him now he's lost, thinking they see weaknesses, they see chinks in his armor that they can maybe exploit. But how many other heavyweights could take that shot there, or that fourth round that he put on Fury? And we know he's dangerous. It's what makes him so exciting to watch, is he's flawed, but his strengths just are the perfect ingredients for a really exciting fight. Like, even though he was getting battered and outfought by Fury, there was still a chance that he could land that clean punch
Oh,
and knock him out. And that's why he doesn't want to ever be pulled out of a fight, because he knows as long as he's in the ring, he said it himself, he only needs to be good for 1 second, because he only needs to land that clean shot, and it's totally swung in his favor. So you could put him in there with an Andy Ruiz, for example, and it would almost be exactly the same as a Dillian White. It would almost be the exact same as even Usyk or Joshua, in that you might think he's going to get outboxed or he's going to lose the fight, but he's always going to be in with that puncher's chance. And I do think he's better technically than a lot of people give him credit for. But because of that, anything could go either way. He could win, he could lose, he could get stopped. He could stop his opponent as well. It's such a fascinating mix of ingredients for a fighter coming back. Whatever level you put him at, he's going to be in a fight that you're going to want to tune in for.
Even the 10th, was it the 10th, the 9th or 10th, or maybe the round he got stopped? I don't know. Like, he was still landing from somewhere. He still had a few moments of joy then. He was still like somehow throwing punches and somehow still actually landing a couple. Whether it was just totally going out, burning the last embers of the flame, I don't know. But I think whether he comes back now it's up to him, I guess. I guess he's financially secure. I'm assuming he will be. So it's now, does he come back for the love? You know what I mean? That trilogy is gone. Like, he had something to aim for there. Maybe he still believed in himself with that. He could beat Fury. He can't. So, that's done in 3 fights. That's gone. So does he come back and maybe bash up a couple of lesser names? You know what I mean? Like fringe content, top 20 or something. And then does he, don't know. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what his path will be. It would be fascinating. Like, does he try and work himself back into some sort of number 1 contention? But again, for me, that's always just going to be to fight Fury or Usyk. And you think, I can't see him beating any of them, but why put him against AJ? But for what? If AJ loses his next one, for what? Nothing. Just a fight.
It's interesting because, again, there's comments coming in now saying, like, after the age of 35 in any sport, like, you're done. There's only a few guys can carry it on after 45. Time and tide wait for no man. And I do agree with all that. I'm not saying like Wilder's ever going to be the same, because his aura of invincibility has been completely shattered like several times now. So he's not. But there's also what you alluded to and hinted at about AJ, that like he's not the fighter he was. He doesn't have that same confidence. So putting them in together, there may be no belts on, but if they both want to make millions of pounds, millions of dollars, then it's still a massive like fight to be made. And maybe it's a little easier to make now that they both suffered the losses, that they're not what they once were. They don't have the same egos involved. And I'm not saying them personally with the egos, although would have played a part, but like all of their teams and stuff, there's not as much to lose from putting them in a fight now that they could lose again. Like, there'd be a massive, I think you could make a case for both Joshua and Wilder if you put them in a fight together, and it would definitely sell on pay-per-view, whether that's DAZN or Sky Box Office. I
think unless things get complicated now, you should have the heavyweight picture set out basically for 2022. You should basically have your Joshua Usyk rematch, which I think Hearn alluded to in sort of March time next year. Then you should have the winner of, this is all how it should be. Then you should have the winner of White versus Wallin, but against Fury, and then hopefully the winner of those two, those two fights again. Then that should be a picture going forward. Like, you'd have to say at this point it would be Fury versus Usyk, sort of late 2022, I'd imagine.
And if that plays out, I'd be absolutely delighted. Like, yes, it's not. We've missed out on Wilder versus Joshua at their sort of prime, if you want to call it that. We've missed out on Fury Joshua when that obviously should have been made. We've had plenty of good fights in the interim, and then if it comes down to Fury and Usyk unifying the division, then so be it. Like, may the best man win.
Class. And I don't like, a huge Usyk fan. I honestly think he's amazing, but I just think those physical strengths of Fury and that, I don't know. Maybe I'm being very reactionary from. I'm not. You can never discount Usyk. He's an amazing fighter, but I don't know. I think beating Joshua and Chisora is now one thing, and I honestly think beating Fury is a totally different proposition now. I just think I struggle, honestly. I don't know who's going to beat him. And it was never always the case. It was never always that case with Fury. It was always, you always thought there's a few chinks there. And, unless these knockdowns have taken something out of him, or he takes his eye off the ball again, which hopefully
And that's the thing. There still are there's those vulnerabilities and flaws. Like ultimately, he has been dropped. You know what I mean? You got like that again. We keep going back that fourth round, but that shows that he can be hit, he can be got. But it also then shows that he can be hit behind one of the hardest punches in the history of boxing, and get up and put it back on him. So it definitely, like, I don't see any argument for like having Fury at number one right now. There's not.
I think someone made a good point on Saturday, and it's quite mental to, because he's based himself in America for so many fights now. Like, even the Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin and stuff. And, like, I don't forget that he's English. I just mean, like, he's never really had a crowning moment in this country. Do you know what I mean? And I think someone, Mr. Bunty, asked Frank Warren, I think, on Saturday, like, will we ever see Fury in a big stadium and that over here? And Frank was like, oh, it's too early to say and all that, which in my head thought, well, he's definitely tied down to America for a lot of time. And it's like, it's a shame, really, because, like, imagine if he, AJ's had many of them now, but, like, is he ever going to get his crowning moment in this country? Yeah, he's a man of the people and everyone likes him. They like watching his funny clips and stuff. And it's like, I don't know if he realizes.
But if he wanted to, like, yes, obviously he's built his name stateside now with the WWE as well, hasn't he? He's definitely got an appeal over there. And obviously Vegas, we know, is generous tax-wise. So he's going to be making a lot of money, and it would have to be worth his while. But if he has to defend the belt against Dillian White, for example, that would be nice to see over here. Like, that would be a big fight in the UK.
I wonder if he knows how much love there is for him, like, in this country now. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
I hope so.
He's phenomenal, and that's without even getting into the whole mental. We've covered that many times. This is mental health past and stuff. Like, as a fighter, he's fantastic. So it's hopefully the picture's set for that division, and we'll find out more when White takes on Otto Wallin, whenever that is, October. I don't know.
October, I think.
I best check.
In this month is our next. Anyway, within the next sort of month or so.
I'd love to penny for AJ's thoughts, like watching that sort of, that puts the ball in his court and that, like, he has to deliver next time around against Usyk. Like, if not, then where's the road back for him? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a long road back.
Yeah,
anyway.
Again, the obvious comparison, like, is Wilder, isn't it? Like, that he's come off second best to someone. If he loses the rematch to Usyk, he's done the same as Wilder. He's come off second best to a mighty fine fighter, but it's up to him then. Does he want to continue not being number one? Does he believe that he can get back to that point and fight Fury? Or is he happy making a couple more paydays, which he will very likely be able to do, and then hang up the gloves? Or is it a case of walk away? Like, we don't know, do we? Obviously, we're not privy to their thoughts and what exactly they're looking at in terms of boxing and what they think or feel they've got left to prove. So you've laid out the plan. It'll be very interesting to see just how closely it actually sticks to that, and we'll maybe revisit this one in 12 months' time and see how many of those fights have happened, what's played out, and the state of the heavyweight division then. But bearing in mind, we said we were going to do this for an hour, and we're nearly 40 minutes in. We've just talked about the first fight. That was going to be like our first point and move on, and we're still going on. So we'll go from Vegas to Liverpool, from the heavyweights to the super welterweights. Did you manage to catch much of this show before staying up for the American action?
I've seen all of it from 4:30 on YouTube, on DAZN YouTube.
For that.
Watched the whole lot, from the first fight to the last, from 4:30 till the end. I know you were there, ringside in Liverpool representing BBB. Nice to get us out back on the road and a main national show and out of the northeast for a bit. And actually, like, nice that they sort of remember that we exist and give us a pass and stuff. And it was, we had a northeast moment on the show as well, which we'll come to. But yeah, I've seen it all, and I thought, it was just encapsulated by the main event and the chief support. I thought were two fantastic fights. Like, chief support, Williamson Cheeseman, fight of the year contender, 100%. And I just thought the main event was fascinating as well. We'll might as well start with that. I thought Liam Smith just showed all his experience in there. I thought he was fantastic. He came back from his cut in the first round really well. He rallied and he didn't get flustered. He just stuck to his task. I could have sort of, derailed a lesser man, but I thought, he was really calm under the pressure, and I thought he handled Fowler really well in the end. But Fowler did have his moments, but I thought experience and class told there from Liam Smith.
Interesting, because from ringside, I think I had Fowler 4 rounds up, and then obviously in the 50 was dropped. But it's that thing of watching from ringside, and
yeah,
we can talk about judging, and there was a little bit of controversy on one of the undercard bouts, but I think I always find it harder to judge a fight from ringside, which makes it seem bizarre that the judges are sat ringside. Like, in a more elevated view, you've got a better idea of what's happening, and maybe on TV you can see things from different angles. And I might be way off, but like, there was a lot of surprise when Andy Lee's scorecard popped up and he had Liam Smith sort of winning everything apart from the first round, because the first few rounds looked like it was just Fowler in control. He was boxing well off the jab. Obviously, there was the cut. You can't necessarily factor that into the scoring, but it looked to be giving PP a bit of bother. And Fowler looked as good as I've seen him, considering who he was in against.
Oh, 100% he did. He boxed well. He did box well, but I always
there were big question marks around him going into that fight, and like, rightly so, it ultimately proved. But the only time he's really stepped up in competition, he's lost, and that's still the case now.
Yeah.
But this fight, I thought he looked very composed and controlled. He was keeping the fight at his distance and frustrating Smith for large parts of it. But it's a 12-round fight. Like, it ultimately counts for nothing, because, as you say, Smith kept his head. He kept the pressure on him. He forced Fowler into mistakes, if you want to say it like that way, but he forced the fight where he wanted it, and like, obviously landed his big shots, and wasn't necessarily like the one shot damage, but the finish and little flurry combination and the hook was sensational. It was as good as anything we saw in Vegas, really.
Yeah, I agree. That was classic Liam Smith. That, and honestly, Fowler did box really well in parts, 100%, and he started well. And just think, he still looks a bit fragile to me. There's just something a bit about him. I think sometimes he just under pressure. I think he can still look a bit panicked and a bit like rabbit in the headlights. And he did against Fitzgerald, and I think he did on Saturday as well. And I just think it was that experience of Smith being, I know he's not that much older than Fowler, but 3 years older than something, been around the block.
It's the professional experience in terms of bouts and competition. And I had a chat with a few of the lads ringside, like Steve from Boxing UK, and Freelance Foz was there as well. So we had a bit of chat, and we're saying like a lot had been made about the experience of Liam Smith going into it, that was going to be the deciding factor. And you can maybe debate whether it was or not, but what we then sort of thought about was like, actually, like, what is that experience? He's won the British title, he's won the Commonwealth title, he beat very limited opposition to get a WBO world title. So he has mixed at that higher level. He's obviously been in with Canelo, but was ultimately outclassed against him. And there's no shame in that whatsoever, really. But has he really like mixed at that higher level? I mean, the wins over Liam Williams were definitely his best wins, and probably still are.
I think they look better with hindsight now.
100%. Like Williams' little resurgence has made Smith's wins look better, to be honest. Apart from that, like the Egerton fight, he obviously lost a controversial decision to Kurabov, but how good is actually he? Like, it was maybe wasn't as obvious as it first seemed, but the way the fight played out, Smith used every bit of his experience. Like, he was able to maintain his composure, to keep calm, to push the action, and ultimately get the fight where he wanted it and get Fowler where he wanted it. Whereas Fowler, obviously the Fitzgerald fight, he lost. I think in that fight, he'd lost it possibly before he'd even got in the ring. He was so fired up, so over the top, really wanting to do a number on Fitzgerald, and probably believing his own hype a little bit, that he was levels above Fitzgerald, which wasn't the case. And this fight, I think he showed Smith the respect in the build-up, and that was maybe reflected in his better, more relaxed, like, composed performance for the first 6 rounds anyway. Obviously dropped in the 5th as well, but there was a different side to Fowler, and I was impressed by it. But ultimately, that counts for very little because he's been stopped like round the halfway just in the second half of the fight, hasn't he? It's going to be scant consolation for him that he's boxed a bit better.
Yeah. That's
so from his point of view, I think, you look at the chief support British title. Is that where his level is at the moment? Is that where he needs to drop down to? I say drop down to from Liam Smith, but even fighting Ted Cheeseman or Troy Williamson would be a huge step up from his recent competition. Like, if you look at who he's fought since the Fitzgerald loss, the Brian Rose performance, was a fight he was expected to win. He boxed well. He won that fight. And since then, since moving to Shane McGuigan, it's just been these sort of tune-ups and
English
off the cobwebs fight. I couldn't name you one of his Harry Scarf he fought and all that, but a lot of that.
Scarf, do you know what I mean? That's
as I say, that's because I know my domestic fighters. There's not many that you think, oh, that was an impressive win, or he's really shown me that he's improved or he's learned something. And then again, he's come against Liam Smith. He's made that step up and lost. And it sounds really harsh sitting saying that, but they're the cold facts, aren't they? That's the reality that he's now in. Broken Nose Boxing chipping in the chat. He's got a few comments there, saying Fowler should target British title. He needs to win something in his career.
Yeah,
I would argue, again, this is very knee-jerk reaction to Saturday night, with the momentum is 100% with Troy Williamson there. Troy would fancy his chances massively of stopping Fowler, and I'd love to see the opening odds on that one as to whether the bookies would agree.
I agree with you and Broken Nose Boxing. I think that's his ceiling at the minute, and if he gets there, he's done well. I just think, like you said, he boxed better in patches, but what's that? I was calling it the Shane McGuigan effect. I thought, he started well. He did start well, but ultimately, like you said, the cold hard fact is that he never capitalised on it. And it's the way I watched it, it was that it took Williams a while to settle, and what finally he did, sort of turned the screw and put him back into his type of fight, and pretty handsomely got him out of there. And I think the good work early on sort of fell apart pretty quickly. And I don't know, that's the level he's at now, getting stopped by Liam Smith, beat by Fitzgerald, and you think people might always be interested in Fitzgerald too, but from what you hear about Fitzgerald, he's not in the best way, and still isn't, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. So Fowler's an interesting one. Will he be part? Will it even be Matchroom that rebuilds him? Yeah, you don't know. They're ruthless. Is that game changed to defeat Anthony Fowler, who kind of get past British level on you? All right, he's got the amateur background, but who's to say Matchroom will stay loyal to him? You know what? He could find himself on Channel 5. He could find himself on BT. Still a name. I think it would have been more costly to Liam Smith's career if he lost on Saturday night. Fowler can bounce back again. There will be fights there for him. But 30-year-old, and, as I totally agree with you, if he fought Troy Williamson next week, it's reactionary, but, I would fancy Troy Williamson to stop him. At this point, you really would. I think Fowler looks fragile and a bit, nervous even. I thought he looked nervous in his ring walk. And it just, another example goes to show that not all of these GB fighters are going to make world-class pros. Do you know what I mean? And that's the cold reality of it, really. He's not at that level. Nowhere near it, actually. If you're talking world titles where he wanted to, when he first turned over, that was the noise, and that's the noise that comes from most of the GB lads. And I think he's a million miles away. Huh?
And again, I was contemplating as you were talking, that GB pedigree, that amateur career that he's had, because a lot gets made and hyped about the Olympians, and obviously there were a few ringside there this weekend, and there's a lot of talk buzzing around that the Matchroom are obviously one of many promoters and management companies that are looking to sign these lads, and it's understandable why they've competed at the highest level as amateurs, so there is a logical expectation that they're going to make good pros. But you hit the nail on the head saying that it doesn't always happen. If Fowler had come from the small hall scene and competed with Fitzgerald, for example, who, again, let's not forget, is a Commonwealth gold medalist himself, and then got to where he's got, put in that sort of fight against Liam Smith, you'd be like, oh, brilliant, I want to see him in a British level. I want to see him fight these fights. He could technically, feasibly win a European title and all the rest of it. But because the turnover was such fanfare and promotional push, I think the casual viewer maybe is just expecting that they're going to get to world level, or that they're going to pick up these world titles. And we know that doesn't happen. It's not the case. It's not a foregone conclusion at all. I think Fowler definitely still has some value to Matchroom. He'll be an entertaining fight. He'll be a good chief support. He'll be on undercards. Like, if he's in with a game opponent, and we'll get to like Cheeseman and Williamson again, but like using those as an example, like either of those, like if they put Fowler in against Sam Eggington, for example, like they would make entertaining fights because of his style, because of his profile. Everything about him is marketable, I think, definitely. But then you hark back to the whole DAZN game changed, and it's not a case of that at all. It's a fun undercard fighter that they can market and probably put in another few fights and like see if he can come back again.
Well, that's it. You know, he probably has got some value, but Lewis Whitson didn't hold enough value, or Josh Kelly didn't hold enough value. You know what I mean? They've discarded quite a lot of fighters recently. Like Avanesian couldn't even get a Matchroom deal, and he was absolutely sensational on him. You know, Callum Johnson, another one. Like, does he not hold value in entertaining fights? He's gone. You know what I mean?
Potentially, and there'll be a lot going on behind the scenes in terms of management and like advisory deals, etc. And whether they get on well with Matchroom as promoters will play a big part of that. Now, I'm not saying any of those names you mentioned don't, but again, we're not privy to those discussions and negotiations, so we don't know what the fighters are wanting, what the promoters are wanting from the deal, and all the rest of it. But yeah, definitely, like it's a cutthroat business, isn't it? It's ruthless. Like, we know it is. There's competition now from all angles. There's companies coming up all over the place, getting TV deals, different shows. So from a boxer's point of view, yeah, there are other options, definitely.
Absolutely. I think, you're right. You're totally right. And I think there's more, like you said, companies and more TV networks than ever before, I guess. And it just doesn't always, whether the rebuild for Anthony Fowler is going to be on DAZN, debatable for me. I think it'd be interesting. I don't know what his current deal is in that, but I don't know. We'll see. Like, if you're brutal about it, then your eggs are in Liam Smith's basket now. It's like, let's make Smith Vargas. Do you know what I mean? It's like.
And honestly, if I'd got the chance to speak to Eddie on Saturday, that was one of the things in my head. Like, I was going to not take him to task, but like ask him about and grill him. Is like, as a promoter, how hard is it not to have that favorite, not to have someone that they like want to win? Like, would there have been more upside to Fowler winning and maybe binning off Liam Smith and like, all those factors we've just talked about, promoting Fowler to that like world title level? Or is he just as excited and just as happy to do it with Liam Smith, who obviously is taken from Frank Warren and is 33 years old, has been there before and lost? Like, it's interesting whether like Liam Smith, without the right dance partner, is he going to be a headline act on DAZN? Is that where we're going with it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Or will he go to Vegas and fight on? Will he fight the big fight away? He's done it before. Do you know what I mean? Like, will it be as part of one of the American broadcasts? Maybe, because that's where it'll look for him now, I guess. But I don't know. I felt like it's going to be a tough rebuild. I think he's going to have to go again and like rebuild a 30-year-old again against English levels, that like the likes of your Harry Scoffs and around that level, I guess, or foreign opponents, or unless he just thinks, right, so that I've lost twice, I'll go in with it. If Cheeseman continues, someone like that, do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. And again, like,
it's a stacked division in this country. It's decent.
Broken Nose Boxing said exactly the same before there. He's just said like there are a lot of British level super welterweights knocking about there, and Fowler needs to get in and fight them, needs to get in the mix. I know you can't see the comments, but you've just echoed his absolutely perfectly. He says, but not Conway. He's the most forgettable boxer ever.
Oh yeah, Conway's had a bloody good run on Matchroom.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's got something about him. I think he's not necessarily going to be an exciting fight, but I think he poses problems for anyone who's not on the game.
He looked big on Saturday. He looked massive, and I thought he looked big at the weight. And I don't know. I was quite looking forward to Conway Metcalf, but
he did from ringside as well. And anyone listening, you might want to do like a little tally chart of how many times I say I was ringside. But from there, talking to a few of the lads again in the press row, and like he looked huge, but he wasn't necessarily using that. He wasn't.
Does he ever though?
Wasn't keeping him on the end of the jab and boxing and moving. You think like that was the game plan. Like Metcalf looked quite short and stocky compared to him. Like he won. I thought he won fairly comfortably, but he could have made it that a lot more convincing and a lot more clean. And it was hard work. It seemed like it was hard work for him getting the victory, getting his hand raised.
I guess he's another one that is. It's almost like that Eddie Hearn mentions it a few times, that winner stays on mentality. Match, you know what I mean? Like if he gets beat, and he might be gone. You know what I mean? And it's that ruthless at the minute. And then Conway's had a decent run, and like, it's gonna have to end in a title fight, I guess, isn't it? So you know what I mean? Like it's an easy one to make, hopefully now. So yeah, fascinating. But he doesn't really excite us that much, I have to say.
So you wouldn't want to see him challenging for the British title next?
Oh, what do you reckon?
I'm just shamelessly getting on to talking about the British title. That's all that was.
Go on, 15 minutes, hit it. You can take this away. You were there, have your moment, because it was mint.
It was one of the best fights I have seen live. Like, I'm not even joking. I can't exaggerate that. It was unbelievable. And the fact I had a bit of a vested interest, obviously supporting, I'm trying to stay impartial here. I was on my feet ringside, like cheering, clapping. I was just like, I said to them, I was like, impartiality has gone out the window here, boys. Like, there was a few Williamson fans like dotted around as well, like chanting from Teesside and all this. I was just like, and you're like, it was like I wanted him to do it, and I had a little look with on Twitter. Wayne Cheeseman had tweeted us during the week saying like he thought it was going to be a great fight. I mean, I'd put on Twitter that like it was hardly the boldest prediction we've ever made, but it had potential to steal the show, and it certainly did that. It was everything that it was built up to be, and that played a part in this whole weekend of boxing, because you look at the card beforehand and it was stacked. You look at Fury Wilder headlining, you're like, yep, buzzing for that. But so how often do these fights and these cards that you think look great fail to deliver? Something goes wrong, some of the fights are flat, whatever it is. Whereas this one, the show had just been building, and you could tell from the first 30 seconds what sort of contest this was going to be. I thought Troy looked sharp off the jab. I thought he was boxing very well on the front foot, trying to get Cheeseman back, trying to force him back, forcing him to fight Williamson's plan. He was trying to dictate what he wanted to do, and not necessarily always the wisest of strategies. Like before the fight, he'd said, like, if Cheeseman wants to box, I'll box. I can move, I can jab, I can do that. If he wants to get into a war, I'll get into a war. And you think, well, try and do the opposite. Like Foz said exactly that. He was like, surely the best tactic is to box a brawler. Like if someone's wanting to box, you put it on them and you fight. And it just seemed like tit for tat. The pair of them were happy to do what the other one wanted, and they were both had moments where they were trying to jab, and you thought, oh, okay, that's a tidy little 1-2 or whatever. And then there was times where you thought they're in the pocket here. They could be separated, like the whole cliche of like in a phone box. Like they were just happy digging into each other's body, uppercuts, hooks, the lot. And I mean, it doesn't harm watching a fight that Cheeseman just seems to block punches with his face for fun. I don't know how long. I don't know how much longer he can continue doing that, because like the ending was sensational. It reminded me of Bellew and Makabu, just purely because it was probably the last time I was ringside in Liverpool, and that left hook that finished it, he backed him up onto the ropes, and there'd been times in the fight you thought it was coming a bit earlier, and then Cheeseman would fire back, and even just before he got caught with the right uppercut, he fired back and landed a decent looking shot on Troy, and then there was a right uppercut, as I said, just before the sort of final flurry, and that like the left hook was like, oh my God moment. I was on my feet, applauding, trying to sort of be quite reserved, cheering, because of obviously press row etiquette and all that, but also the fact that like there was genuine concern for Cheeseman too, and it was nice to see that like Troy and his team, Craig Carney in the corner, and everyone else there, they were sort of respectful as well, and slightly muted until they knew he was all right and up and about, and then like the emotions came pouring out. And I really don't mind seeing that, because there was no animosity, there was no bad blood. It was very respectful in the build-up, and that basically is why the fight was the way it was. They both respected each other's power, they respected what each other was trying to do, whilst also looking to establish their own game plan. And I think it was the 7th or 8th round, I feared a little for Troy. I thought his punches looked a little sloppier, they were a little wider, maybe not the same zip to some of his shots, because he'd been putting so much into everything else he'd thrown. And it maybe just needed that round to recover, get himself back on, listen to his corner, and come out and do what he needed to do. And like, what a way to win the British title. We've obviously seen it before from a Northeast fighter who will remain nameless, because I'm not gonna hit the quota for this podcast, but like, to do that away from home, and to rip the title away from the champion in such convincing fashion, like, was truly sensational. It'll rank with one of the best wins of a domestic title, definitely from a Northeast fighter I've seen in all the years we've been covering the sport. 100%. I think the only other thing I want to add is that, and it makes it even more impressive, my main doubt, even though I'd said to Wayne on Twitter that I saw Troy nicking a competitive decision, I hoped maybe rather than expected him to do that, was I didn't know how he would cope with the 12-round distance, because he always seemed to put so much venom into his shots. And Cheeseman, we know, has gone that distance, and he's put it on fighters for that distance. So for Troy to get into like the championship rounds and then produce that finish was just like worthy of so much like praise and respect and applause. And I doff my cap to him. He was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, he was fantastic. He'd never been that distance, you know what I mean? It was a step into the unknown for Troy, really. Like, all right, he'd be Kevin Smith, but like Cheeseman's a bit feels like a veteran now at that level. And like, but Troy was big, he was fresh, and he scored an amazing win. And again, it's a fighter that we've known for a lot of years up here. Not known dead well. Like, we never got too close. It was quite hard to get too close to him. He can occasionally be a man of few words, but when you do spend a bit of time with him, he's like we did at Floyd Mayweather that time. Remember backstage at the City Hall at Floyd Mayweather, and he's great crack when he gets going.
Oh, honestly, like, he's class. Like, I remember, and like I dug out one of our tweets.
Still gathering on right there.
Back on.
I know, honestly, and I just think I was just really pleased for him, and I think he's got a real future at like in that division now at that level. And I tweeted on Saturday night, like, I'd be surprised if Mr. Hearn wasn't knocking on his door asking what his current situation was. Do you think he's going to let him go straight back to Frank Warren after that? He was, you know what I mean? That's like, well, maybe you will. Maybe you'll have to fight Shiraz or on BT. I don't know, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me if he was picking up the phone the next day, speaking to, like he did when a certain Northeast boxer won a British title that time. Do you know what I mean? If you're scoring knockouts on DAZN shows, I think, you know, good luck to Frank holding on to him, I think, after that. But I just thought, I thought he was excellent. Cheeseman's a little concern now. I think at this stage, it's becoming a little uncomfortable. Amazing to watch, absolutely minty. He's, like I tweeted on Saturday, he's added so much value to matchroom shows over the years. Like, he's never in a door fight, never. But it's almost at that point now where should he still be in there fighting like that? It is literally defending with his face at times, and it's becoming a little too, maybe he's on the uncomfortable side. It's war after war now. You know what I mean? It's literally like leaving it all in there every single time. And God, that must age you. Like, it ages me watching him sometimes. And I was speaking to like people on Saturday about it, and a lot of people have the same thing. Like, he needs to have a big think here. And a tweet that I put out on Saturday that went down really well was like, if he does hang them up, you're like, you know, he's a Tony Sims lad and all that, and you'd be close to Eddie and that, but Eddie should stick him a few quid, because like I said, he adds so much value and entertainment to these matchroom shows, and has done for some time now. But it's now, as I say, just becoming a little bit on that, you know, uncomfortable side of like, how much more punishment can he take? And it's now at British level. You know, he tried to step up against Garcia that time, and if the European level, and he got outboxed, beat, you know, handsomely. And now it's sort of even at a lesser level now. He more than paid his part in a mint fight, a really good fight. But that stoppage is quite brutal. And as I say, it's time and time again now that Cheeseman's having to really go to the well just to stay in, like, don't know.
Oh yeah, like I
he
never
needs to think, definitely.
never thought I'd be comparing Ted Cheeseman to Deontay Wilder, but it's what we were saying before, isn't it? Of like, he's always going to be in entertaining fights because of the way he boxes, because there's now those vulnerabilities, like in he's sort of, you can say whether it's his defense or whatever. He's another one as well. I'd say actually that he's a better boxer than he gets credit for. But it's because so often he gets drawn into these wars and just neglects his actual technical skills and wants to stand and have a trade. And it makes for great viewing. Like, again, I was just like, if you want a cracking undercard fight or a chief support,
I'll put him on.
you put
That's what
Ted
I mean.
Cheeseman in against a domestic rival, and you know it's going to steal the show. You know it is. Like, so obviously putting him in with someone heavy-handed like Troy, who is also very willing to stand and fight in a similar fashion, it was always going to gel and be a really exciting fight. And let's not forget, it was a mandatory. It was one that was enforced, but that is the sort of mandatory that you can get on board with. It was phenomenal.
I just think maybe now all need, like, everyone concerned, like Hearn, Sims, Cheeseman, like, they're just, I don't know, like you say, how long can he just keep being that? Hey, just put Ted Cheeseman on, man, he's mint. It's like,
no, and this is it, isn't it?
Like, does he fight Fowler in a loser stays on, like, to a battle of the losers? You know, one more go at it to get where British.
I think on the one hand, he's 26, and so he'll be thinking, fuck it, I've got like loads of, I've got years left in me. But he's had that many fights that take years off you.
Yeah.
He's probably in his mid-30s in terms of as a boxer.
I think he needs to. I know, and especially when you see people in the train, like actual fighters as well, saying like, he needs to think about this because it's like, I don't know, he shouldn't be anywhere near a ring. Some people like it was almost, I don't know. It's a funny one. But again, he's had his own personal circumstances and stuff to deal with. He put a good Instagram post out though. He seems really happy, and he's got his own separate businesses now away from boxing. He's overcome a lot of personal stuff, and honestly, huge fan. Which, like,
again, is part of the, like, I don't want to say the matchroom factor, but it's the way modern boxing's gone, that with social media we do see that human side to them a lot more now. And yeah, like, again, from a boxing fan point of view, I will tune in for Ted Cheeseman, like, win, lose, or draw. He's
who did he fight up here?
Fighter that I enjoy watching.
Yeah.
But from that more compassionate viewpoint, yeah, I would be quite happy if he's financially secure and he's got his life sorted and settled outside the ring. He's had well publicized problems as well. But if he's content, then yeah, like, by all means, obviously hang them up, go off. Hopefully he's made himself a bit of money back and he's like on a steady setting, and he's got that family, he's got like Bellew gets the piss taken out of it, but he's got like the partner, he's got the kids to look forward to and spend his life with, and like there are a lot easier ways to make money and make a life than professional boxing, for sure.
The face of who did he fight up here? I remember interviewing him in the Metro Centre, and I cannot remember who his opponent was.
Fitzy beat him on points for the British.
God, did he? Well, I never. There you go.
This was another topic of discussion. Like, obviously, we're talking about this stacked division, and Fitzgerald has beat Cheeseman, he's beat Fowler, and he's nowhere through what we're just saying there. If you look at it from the human side of things, like, he's obviously by all accounts struggling outside the ring and wasn't able to capitalize on that momentum. Like, he could have been European champion now. He could have fought for the world title. It's not unrealistic with the backing of Matchroom to have like envisioned. You've seen that coming.
There's something about his last fight though, and I think a few people picked up on it. He just didn't look right, didn't seem right in the interviews, and just you see him mentioning a few comments on Twitter, and doesn't seem to be in the. I don't know. Maybe that comeback was too early, and doesn't seem to be coming back anytime soon, does he? But that's a proper shame, real shame. Do we quickly look ahead to this weekend, or do we?
Yeah, we've linked again seamlessly from Fury Wilder through to Liverpool, through to a Northeast interest, to boxing's return to the. I'm going to say Newcastle Arena. I can't even know who's sponsoring it now.
Utilita.
That was.
We'll just call it the arena. We'll just call it the arena. We're quite spoiled up here, really. It feels like, obviously, like, it was only June that I was at the Eagles Arena. Do you know what I mean? And it's like 4 months later, we went years without shows up here, but I were back, Sky Sports and Boxer. their second show back up here on Saturday. I think we're both going to be there. We've got some sort of successful accreditation email today. I'm assuming that counted for both of us because I applied for both of us.
Yeah, I saw there was 2 separate ones applied for, so we'll chase that up. But yeah, like again, it's nice that we are being spoiled, and this is one of the benefits of many different promoters. There's pros and cons to that, from like paying extra subscriptions, etc., which we haven't even begun to talk about.
Next week.
We'll leave that one for now, I think. But like, yeah, it's nice that then, you know, we're not just relying on the Matchroom bandwagon rolling into town. We've got Boxer on Sky. There's a few familiar faces to us, a few familiar faces to the national audience that are boxing up here and showcasing themselves as well. Like, I think it's potentially be a decent night, and be interesting to see the progress from Boxer's first show to this one.
I think it's I don't know. It's a funny one. Like, hasn't had that fanfare, I don't think, as a Matchroom show normally does, and it does seem a little like maybe it's low key. I don't know why that is. I'm not sure, but there is. I don't think it's that bad of a card. I've seen a few people slating on Twitter, and I think it's all right. Me, like, you know, Savannah, Chris Eubanks now on there, Huey Fury, Ritson, a few debutants. Like, it's all right. You know, it's Northeast Prospect. Brad Ray's on there against Jez Smith, and if you're as sad as us, you'll get excited about Brad Ray versus Jez Smith.
I'm genuinely looking forward to that one. Like, really,
that's a decent little domestic. You know, the Jez Smith that fought Leharaga, he's in pretty. Yeah, could be a cracking fight. And if the last Brad Ray came and knocked someone out on the Matchroom show and unbeaten kid, it could be a really decent scrap there. I like pro debuts of some really talented prospects like Mark Dickinson, Georgia O'Connor, and stuff. So nice to be back, and I'm looking forward to it. Let's just see how it goes. Like, I guess we have to give like Boxer and that a chance. It's a new era, like you said, and like, let's see how they do, and that's onwards and upwards, hopefully. Anyway, but nice to be back in Newcastle on Saturday, and I'll hopefully be at the press conference at St James's on Thursday as well to get involved with that.
It should be good, and as you say, like, from our point of view, biased Northeast point of view, there's definitely a special bit of interest for us. But personally, as well, I'm really excited to see Chris Eubank Jr. up in Newcastle.
Yeah,
I don't think his opponent's going to be up to much. I think he's
before though, any remember? He's fought in Newcastle before. Do you remember?
Oh yeah. I wasn't there, but yeah, he was. He has.
But his dad stared at him in the corner, and Mal Gates was there. It's funny.
I just think, like, go on, Mal, gets everywhere. But I just think it's like the matchup itself isn't great. Definitely not. No. But his name being added to the card definitely adds that little bit of intrigue, and it wouldn't be fair for me to not say that, because when he got pulled, even though I wasn't particularly bothered about his last opponent when he was meant to be headlining, that removed a little bit. And like Avanesian Taylor, which I thought was a good chief support, then sort of bore the brunt of suddenly being the main event when it wasn't necessarily meant to be. And I've got no issue with the European title headlining a standard Sky Saturday night card. But as I say, it's like their losses are gain in terms of the Newcastle show and being able to see him live. He's again a bit of a presence, isn't he? He's like, you know, he's a good level boxer, and I think from their point of view, from Boxer with the 2X's point of view, it's going to be very interesting and very important to see how they match him against whoever they choose to, whatever route they're going to go down with him, because he definitely has that potential star power, but he needs the right dance partner to get everybody interested in what he's doing. And again, can potentially be an entertaining fight, but needs to be in with someone that's going to test him and it's going to give him a competitive fight.
I think the running order on Saturday is going to be really interesting. I think, and maybe that was what I was trying to allude to before that, because most recent arena fight nights up here have been all based around like the progression, career trajectory of I guess, Lewis Ritson. Do you know what I mean? And I think like he wasn't even on the Sky Sports poster. Like when they were advertising it the day, it's like, oh, it was Savannah, Huey, maybe Eubank. I think he was like, so, you know, from what I gather, Savannah Marshall's going to headline it. And you know what I mean? I think like whether who comes in chief support, whether it's Eubank or whether like Lewis is much further down the card, which could be beneficial to him, to be honest with you.
Which, in terms of if Savannah is main eventing, I don't think that's a bad shout, you know, because it's a genuine world champion, like a very talented boxer.
She's amazing. Love it. Right?
It helps push the female boxing, and I think she is one where she's going to potentially get that knockout or stoppage. She's going to be an exciting fight. So she could be, like, obviously she was with Matchroom. She could be one of the major beneficiaries of this new partnership with Sky, that she could be getting exposed to a whole bigger audience. And there was a lot of talk in Liverpool of her and Clarissa Shield being a lot closer than it ever has been. I'm not naming names or anyone specific, but there were very strong rumours that played a part in a potential sort of 18-month delay if she'd stayed with Matchroom to get in that fight. So it's one to watch out for, whether something comes of that sooner rather than later, because then if she gets that fight, that is 100% justified, her making the switch. And that may not be the case for everyone. I think a lot of people will be looking down on Boxer because it's not Matchroom. It's something new. It's something different. They've tried to repackage the sort of standard Sky show, and there'll be pluses to that, and there'll be criticism. Definitely, we've seen a few already with some of the certain graphics and the way they've presented the show, the roles of some of the pundits. There's lots to take in, and they won't get it right straight away necessarily, but you've just got to have that bit of patience, I suppose.
It'll be interesting to judge it from a northeast arena point of view, like what that does to maybe his atmosphere and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It might be a bit less tune on Saturday. It might just be a bit, I don't know, we've only ever really known that arena to be like a massive
like a home ground, isn't it?
Black and white wall of noise, because getting behind a certain one fighter. Whereas I think Saturday, maybe it's not all about him, and I think maybe that's probably easier. It could do hit Lewis favours, you know what I mean? Like, it's the pressure's hopefully not there. He's done a really tricky little fight, to be honest with you.
I was surprised. It's not that Lundy's great, but in terms of him coming off a loss, you think Lewis would maybe just to be in that sort of, we talked about Anthony Fowler earlier, like tune-ups and some unknown opponent that he's going to blast out. But Lundy's not a bad matchup if he'd.
I don't know.
I was saying, I think I was talking to Ryan from Boxing Social, and I said, if Lewis had beaten Patera and then gone on to fight Lundy for some fringe WBA belt, it's like a world eliminator or something, you would have been like, oh, actually, that's not a bad fight. It's no worse than what Conor Benn's been fighting recently, for example.
A few people on Twitter, when I first put it on our Twitter that he's fighting Lundy, were like, bloody hell, that's some, because I don't know much about Lundy, to be honest with you. I know he's been beat off Terence Crawford and stuff, but even in his last fight, apparently he had his moments against a good fighter and stuff. And it's an interesting one, because the last time I was speaking to his manager, I was like, they turned down a couple of names and we're just going to take our time and not rush things. Next minute, it's like, actually, he's only had a 7-week camp and new daughter and that, so it's going to be fascinating. But looking forward to it all. Looking forward to seeing Big Steve Robinson, Abel Hunter, all of that lot, Savannah as well, and I think it's going to be an interesting night. It's open, but when it's easier for us too, you know what I mean? It's can't wait.
What about a certain cruiserweight bout on there? Broken Nose Boxing, saying there wasn't much to get excited in terms of the matchups. But you mentioned Brad Ray, Jez Smith, Ritz and Lundy. He had acknowledged was decent, but this is a proper hardcore boxing nerd one. But it is definitely one to watch out for.
If any other YouTube channels talking about Michael Webster versus Joan TK this weekend, I'll be amazed if that's whether they're going to televise that, I'm not sure. That might come a lot further down the bill. It could be on YouTube. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but it's interesting. I'm a big fan of Michael Webster. We watched him only a few weeks back knock someone out again first round at Rating Meadows. He was a bit of a lump, but he's getting people out there as well, which is, he's definitely one to keep an eye on. I'm not sure what his ceiling is going to be, but he's still at a very sort of early domestic, journeyman level this weekend. But he's fighting against one of the loveliest fellas you could ever meet, Joan TK. Lovely man, serving soldiers well in the British Army, and I see him loads around here. He lives not too far from me now, and I was on a crap with him the other week, quoting his dog and stuff, and he's just nice man, and he's back. He flirted heavyweight for a bit, and he went over to Germany, and he got a mint win a good few years ago against some Turkish fella, and upset the apple cart and stuff. Never really hit those heights since, but he'll just game. He'll give it a go, but he got a fancy Webster in that. He's looking good. He is looking good. So looking forward to being there. Looking forward to seeing you, seeing everyone who was there, and just maybe having a nice little Saturday night in the arena again. First time in a while.
It is, yeah. That would be a very positive note to end on. Do you want to have a rant about DAZN?
What, 60-second rant?
We'll try and do an hour. We're at 1 minute 20, just ticking over now. I've put on the thumbnail that we are talking about it, so you can have 10 minutes if you want, just to
5 minutes, and I'll have my tea, right? It was just funny today. Like, I didn't even see the survey that apparently went round, and it was just a survey. This is the gist that I took from it. It was an email survey went around to people saying, how likely would you be to buy Dillian Whyte, for example, versus Andy Ruiz for $29.99 on DAZN pay-per-view? And then that circulated around our little boxing Twitter community and stuff, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" Like rightfully so as well, because their earliest sort of slogans were like, pay-per-view is dead, and they've just upped it from $1.99 to $7.99. I'm not thick, and now $1.99 is not viable. But my first $7.99 is going to come out this Friday, and I think, right, that's fair enough.
Come out?
Yeah, mine comes out.
I've already been charged $7.99.
Mine comes out on the 15th.
I might signed up on a different day. I thought I've been paying more for a much longer month than you, raging.
And I just think, like, all right, and then you just think, why box clever sort of thing? Like, you've coming off, in my opinion, the best DAZN weekend so far. Like, the feel good factor from Smith-Fowler was like through the roof, and then they've come out and then dangled the pay-per-view carrot in front of people, the same carrot that they said they wouldn't ever go for. That was, I thought the $7.99 was going to be all inclusive and you get everything for that. Like, but maybe it's obviously not, and I just think it was a very ill-timed thing to send out to people. It's obviously going to get people's backs up. It's a subscription service in its sort of infancy, and you think, why are you going down the route now of trying to even explore further costs? And which is, as more clever people than me have found, like videos in 2018, 2019, where the advertising video was basically saying pay-per-view is dead and all that, and it's like, well, is it? You know what I mean? Is it something they're going to look at and you think, oh man, how much are we going to end up paying for these things? And it's just a bit annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, like, there's been several. I've seen a few different reactions. Most of it has been like annoyance and upset, and then the sort of counterpoint to that's like, oh well, like, obviously $1.99 wasn't viable long term. Like, yeah, as you said, we know that. That's fine. So like, they bumped it up to $7.99. They've put on a cracking card this Saturday. Like, as I say, like, I was there, so I wasn't watching on DAZN live, but I've sung the praises of DAZN and the catch-up service type thing of it, and you can watch it whenever. Like, I've watched Williamson Cheeseman back, watched Smith-Fowler back. Like,
nice.
It's there. It's easy to do, and it's one of the plus points of it. It's brilliant. Like, from that regard, you can watch stuff like, obviously, so if something is on in America, you don't have to stay up. You don't have to have the stress of recording it and not having spoilers or whatever, or like seeing the repeat whenever that's scheduled. Like, you just crack on. There's no spoilers on the app. You go on, it's done. But then there was a lot of sort of praise for them as well. The fact that it attracted Dillian Whyte over, who is this pay-per-view fighter on Sky, or has been a pay-per-view fighter on Sky, and obviously Joshua being the big one. It was like he's staying with Matchroom. You're suddenly like, oh well, actually, it's gone up, and it's like quadrupled in price. But I'm getting these two guys on the service that I'd have been paying 20 quid a pop for if I wanted to watch any of their fights anyway. So you could have a Dillian Whyte fight card on, or a Joshua one on, and nothing else for the rest of the month, and you still feel like you're getting good value for money.
Yeah, exactly.
To then go against all of their marketing and all of their launch point and all of their PR that they've been spinning about how this is the future, that the pay-per-view model is dead.
Yeah.
There's no way of doing pay-per-view. Like, we don't need to do pay-per-view anymore. We can drive subscriptions. All of this that's come back at them today, it leaves that bitter taste in your mouth. And it's not that, like, I'm shocked by it or surprised by it at all, but it's just the latest in a long line of boxing promotion and networks pushing this narrative that is quite clearly bollocks.
The same accounts that were tweeting Game Changed when they got invited to the launch party with the same accounts slating them today, and I thought, that didn't last long, did it? Remember?
We didn't get an invite to the party, did we? So we've been consistent at least.
game changed on the end of your tweets, and now suddenly it's everyone's that didn't last long. Pay-per-view change.
And this
now.
is again like that's been used as a stick to beat them with, and like I do understand that they can't just sort of market things like we do and say, oh well, actually it's quite good, so please give it a try. But
battery's draining by the second. No, I
but
totally
the
agree.
whole spin of everything, the way they've done it, it's encouraged people to come back at them, and like they've put cards on, and we obviously talked at length and praised at length Saturday's card, like how good it was.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily game changed, is it? It's a good boxing card in very much the same format as some of the good cards that have been put on in the past.
Hopefully,
By Matchroom, I'm praising Matchroom here. Like they deserve credit for the good cards that they do put on, but that's nothing new to boxing necessarily, or it shouldn't be.
Hopefully, it's just an ill-timed survey sent out at a bad time, like by some Office Junior at DAZN, who is.
What I found frustrating about the survey was they listed a few different fights, and like White Ruiz was one, Joshua Fury was one, and I'm sure Campbell Lomachenko was one, and it was like, why are they using that one as an example of like a fight that he'd be interested in seeing? And I was like, solve that. So I put like Joshua Fury, and then I think I had White and Ruiz as well. I was like, that's an entertaining fight. But then I was like, fuck, would I be happy paying pay-per-view? Like it went from 40 quid down to 30, down to 25 when I kept saying like, no, I'm not interested in paying pay-per-view for it. And the Fury Joshua one did the same. It was like £40, $39.99. Would you be interested in paying that? And I was like, nah. $29.99 for Fury Joshua. I was like, yes, that's fine. So then, like, you know what I mean? Like that. If they then say, oh well, Andrew Newton in West Auckland, he's happy paying $29.99 for pay-per-view. And it's like, no, I'm not for any pay-per-view. For Joshua Fury, I might have done, but like for any other, like the likes of a White Chisora or a Chisora Usyk, where I didn't pay pay-per-view for those, like I'm not going to do that on DAZN. And if it is just the Sky model, but with fewer other sports, I've just tweeted someone saying the same. Like, if it's just the Sky model without the F1, without the football, without the golf, without the other things that I pay Sky Sports for, then I'll seriously be reconsidering my DAZN subscription, even if it is like $8.99, $7.99 or whatever. It's potentially a $7.99 expense that I can do without if I don't feel I'm getting good value for money.
I think we're just going to have to wait and see, and hopefully it's not something, hopefully it is, being positive, just a bit of market research, but you don't know, maybe it is on the radar, but I'll have to give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess, for now. But it was just annoying, that's all. It's like, oh, hey, man, you've just up your price. It's just, you've had a mint weekend in the box, and let people settle into this new price point and just keep doing what you're doing and build on that. It's like, actually, you fancy paying more money? It's like, oh, shut up, man. You know what I mean? Like,
we've talked about, and I mentioned the plus side of having all these different promoters and platforms competing against each other. It's more opportunities for the boxers. It's may mean more regular shows. Like, brilliant. But if I'm then going to have to pay 3 times what I'm paying now across 3 different platforms, like then no chance really. I think boxing fans, I think they've got to draw a line somewhere. And unfortunately for DAZN, it seems to be fairly conclusive that because of how they've marketed themselves as this anti-pay-per-view platform,
don't jump
to then go back on that whole message, it's not going to sit well with boxing fans, I don't think, and it'll be fascinating to see how this one plays out and what developments there are in the future.
Well, judging by the reaction of Twitter today, again, all very similar independent accounts and people to ours, but it didn't go down too well, let's put it that way. But as you've seen yourself, but I think that's. Apart from that, it's been a good week for boxing.
It has. This wasn't meant to be like a celebration, and if we'd done this podcast yesterday, it would have been 100% positivity, wouldn't it? But there we go. Wouldn't be like a BBB one, that would be a bit of a rant.
95% will do it. But no, it's a pleasure. I shall see you Saturday.
Yeah, definitely, mate. So keep in touch.
We'll get in touch and sort out timings and stuff. All right.
See what's changed in boxing between now and then.
No, thanks to everyone that is. I haven't seen any YouTube stuff, but anyone that's watched, commented, contributed, appreciate it as always. It's a tough world, these independent YouTube channels, but we'll keep going. So I thank you. If anyone wants to like, share, subscribe, mint. Thank you.
Nice one. See you later, mate.
See you in a bit. Bye bye. Bye.